Hi everybody, I hope that you are well and welcome to our Pentecost messy church. So, what has happened in the story of Jesus since we last saw you? Well, we remembered the story of Easter where Jesus died on Good Friday and then rose again. And then during the time that Jesus was back with his friends, Jesus continued to surprise them with different stories and miracles. And then Jesus ascended, went back up to heaven. And then we have this amazing story. Now, I think that Jesus would have gone up to heaven and his friends would have been really quite sad to lose him again. But Jesus had promised them. He had promised them that they would not be alone, and he was sending a new friend for them, the Holy Spirit, and that new friend would be with them like Jesus had been with them, but would be with them and with us forever. So that brings us to this special day, Pentecost. Now, Pentecost was part of the Jewish calendar. It was a really special, and still is, a really special festival. And it's like our harvest festival that we have in September. Well, Jesus' friends would have been celebrating this. They were all together, and all of a sudden they heard a big noise. It was like an enormous gust of wind. They didn't know what it was. And then, on top of their heads, a flame appeared around them. They couldn't believe it. Then they started to speak, but they weren't speaking in their normal language. They were speaking in a different language. And not only that, the language they were speaking in, everybody around them, no matter where they were from, they could understand. My goodness, they must have thought. What an incredible miracle. What a big surprise. Peter, one of Jesus' best friends, stood up and said to everybody around, "Let me tell you about my amazing friend Jesus, what he did and why he was so special." And everybody understood. And loads of people came that day to make Jesus their friend too. And we remember that today because we can still remember that the Holy Spirit is with us. And so what we're going to get you to do is make some lovely flames. Now, this is Beatrice's flame. And can you see she's used acrylic paint for this one? So it's shiny where it's some of the shiny acrylic paint. And then Kyrene with Beatrice helped me make a rock. Can you see? They painted a rock that looked like a flame. So you could do that. But I'm going to show you another way of making a flame. And what you're going to need is a laminating pouch. Now, you don't have to have a laminator to use this. If you've got a laminating pouch, it will do. A laminating pouch, because you can iron it if you haven't got a laminator. and some tissue paper. Now, what colours might we need? Do you remember Beatrice's picture? What colours might we need to do some flames? You're right. We might need some orange. Got some orange already. And some red. And I've got some yellow. And I've also got some black tissue paper. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take the black strips. Sometimes it's a bit tricky tearing tissue paper in the way you want it. And I'm going to line the edges. I'm going to make a frame. And I'm going to make that so that when you pop this on your windows, you will see it will become like a stained glass window. So while I'm making this, I want you to think about what ways do you see Jesus at the moment? What ways do you see Jesus or the Holy Spirit at the moment? I wonder if you see Jesus in your family and in how you spend time together at the moment, and all the ways that you're able to see each other in different ways because everything's a bit quieter and that we can't go out as much as we used to. I wonder if you see Jesus in your neighbours and in the way that everybody comes out or has been coming out to clap to say how much we are grateful for the NHS and for key workers like delivery drivers and pharmacists and teachers and care workers. Oh, get some more paper. It's very good to kind of get rid of any stress to tear some paper up. And I wonder if you might be seeing Jesus in all of the beautiful nature. Because I don't know about you, but I'm finding because the weather's so beautiful and I've got a bit more time where I haven't got all my normal activities, I'm outside a lot more. And I'm noticing how today, when I filmed this, it's on a Friday, the moon was out at the same time as the sun. And that made me think how amazing the world is and how amazing space is. So it made me think about that. And I love listening to the birds in my garden. I wonder what birds you might see. I've seen a robin and a magpie and some chaffinches. And we've got a collared dove, which is like a fancy pigeon who comes and spends time in our garden. Wow. And then I wonder sometimes when you're looking at things like the trees on your walk or the rainbows in the windows, and you remember that there are people who really do care at the moment and want everybody to be safe and happy. Now at the moment, I'm putting some yellow in between my black border. I would love to be able to lift this to the camera, because if I could lift this to the camera, you'd be able to see how nice it's looking. But I have a feeling it's all going to fall down. And then I wonder if there's anything that you're worried about at the moment. When I think of the disciples in the story of Pentecost, I think about how worried they might have been. I think they were probably all a bit broken-hearted because they really did love their friend Jesus and they were so sad to see him go. And even though he had promised that something better was going to come, it must have been hard at times to believe that. And it must have been hard to know when that time would be. I've moved on to orange now. But then I remember that even though at the moment some days I can be a little bit worried, or some days I can feel a little bit fed up with it all, because we've been staying at home for such a long time and we've been doing so well looking after each other and caring for our neighbours and those who need some help. I just wonder how much time the disciples felt a bit fed up too. But there was something rather marvellous about that, because, got some red, every time I see in the Bible a promise of Jesus, I see that it's never broken. You know those friends you've got where they say, I promise this, and you know they'll do it? Or that I always say to my children, I'm not going to promise that because you'll be sad if I break it, and I don't want to break a promise. So I wonder if the disciples could be sure, because their friend Jesus had never let them down and had never, ever been in the situation where he'd lied to them. So perhaps we can also trust that God will be with us. Sorry, I'm getting my laminator. That God will be with us, and that Jesus and God sent the Holy Spirit to be our friend, so we can trust that God is still with us. Now I'm just running that through the laminator at the moment. I'm hoping some laminators need a special carrier, so you'll need to check with a grown-up before you do this. And what you might do is, if you have a laminating pouch but you don't have a laminator, what you might find is that what you need to do is have an iron, and you put a tea towel under the iron and under the laminating pouch, and you make a lovely flame. And then while you're walking around, what we've asked is that members of the West Bridgford Methodist Church put flames in their windows. And so while you're on your walks, or popping down to the shop, or maybe starting to walk back to school, you'll be able to see flames. And if you hold this up to the light, you see that the light shines through. You'll be able to see flames as you walk around West Bridgford. Will you let us know if you see one? Maybe you can count how many you might see. Because what we want you to know is that there's always hope, and that there's always the promise that Jesus would never, ever leave us, and that we can trust in him. I'm going to hold up my flame and Beatrice's flame, and we can imagine they're a bit like the candle we light at Messy Church. Look. And I'm just going to be quiet for a very few seconds. And then I want you to quietly think in your head, or maybe say to your parent or the person who's looking after you, I want you to say, or say in your head, someone that you want to pray for. And then I want you to say or think about something that you're grateful for. And last of all, I want you to just think of something you want help with, and ask God for help with that. And we all say together, Amen. Well, I haven't set up any music, but I'm just going to sing Wonderful Lord to finish this, so that you can hear our song that we sing. And we miss you, and we can't wait to see you when it's safe for us all to be in church again together. And we hope that you and your family are staying safe and well. And we ask that if you need anything, or you need us to pray about anything, that you contact Abby or someone from the church so that we can be in touch. So, we remember our song that goes like this. Wonderful Lord, wonderful God, you are my shield, my protector. I can lie down, go off to sleep, knowing you're watching over me. Wonderful Lord, wonderful God, help me to trust you forever. I need not fear, 'cause you are near. I can lie down and sleep in peace.
Why am I a Christian? Because being a Christian gives me a sense of purpose, to please Jesus and not myself, sense of direction, because I've got to follow Jesus and try to do what he wants me to do, not what I fancy doing. And he also gives me a sense of belonging, because I'm part of a worldwide community of faith. I'm living the dream.
The reason that I am a Christian, it's part of who I am since I was since I was very young. I love going to church, and I love God. It's part of who I am. It's part of my makeup. And every time I go for a walk, I listen to my music. I find it really connects me to God. And I love listening to worship music, hearing those words in my head that connects me to God. I basically love God. I love being part of my community, and I just love God, and I love Jesus, and to me that's really important. That's really important. And during this horrible time, I find that I'm closer to God. I feel like I'm much more closer to God. I feel a lot more closer to God every day. I was baptized as a child, as a baby, and at the age of 14, I was confirmed into the Methodist Church at the age of 14. I find God in every day, the busyness of every day, even at work when things were fast-paced. I find God in the fast-paced busyness of every day when it was all busy, when I was constantly doing things. I just find God in the times when I'm on the bus or when I'm on the taxi in the morning, on the way to my activities, and on the way to the activities, and on the way back on the activities I do. I also found God in being at home, especially during this lockdown period. I've started to do meditation, and I do it nearly 2 or 3 days a week, and I find that presence, and I feel that presence of God in those times, and it really, really helps to keep my mind focused on living, and especially recently, that when I found out being an aunt, I had never been happier in my entire life.
One holiday club in September 2004 led to me finding a place I was settled, as I was set to start a new school in that September. My last 3 years in primary at this new school were unsettled, and I rarely felt like I fit. Church gave me a safe place. I loved my Sunday school teachers and the new friends I'd made at church. A few years later, my minister noticed a real need for youth ministry at the church and strongly encouraged me and 2 others to go on a 50-ish mile trip one early Saturday morning. There was a youth event running alongside the September Synod. It's a good job I didn't choose to lie in that Saturday, because that one event opened up so many more. Months later, I went to my first 3Generate. The summer after, we went to Greenbelt, then another 3Generate, which led to being a 3Generate rep, with another Greenbelt trip in there. I've been able to meet so many people and make so many friends along the way who I have so much in common with. 2018, I even got to go the furthest I've ever been and went to America with my church to help with a vacation Bible school. All these adventures I'd have never been on if I'd never gone to Holiday Bible Club when I was 8 years old. It's been wild, challenging, and sometimes exhausting, but I have God as my excellent tour guide. To know I am never alone and I have God always on my side. At times I may be uncertain about what the future holds, and things might get scary, but there is great comfort and joy in knowing God has a plan and He is always in control.